Welcome back, dear viewer, to Mostly Racing and to my review of the 1999 Formula 1 season. This time, we're looking at the San Marino Grand Prix, which took place at the historic Imola circuit, which is about 70 kilometres from the Republic of San Marino. 2 races in, and the McLaren was the fastest car, but cursed with unreliability, which allowed Ferrari to take the lead in the Team's Championship and in the Drivers' Championship in the form of Eddie Irvine. At the circuit named after Enzo Ferrari and his son Dino, the local fans, Tifosi, would have been desperate to see the Scuderia stretch their leads. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a like. If you wish to see more, then subscribe. It's race number 633. And let's go. Whoa, not so fast there, Nicky boy. Just a quick one to say I'll be doing a bit of a personal update at the end of the video, so stick around until the end if you want to know what's going on with me. Right, now let's go. Before we get into the race, arrows. Remember at the start of the season, I made reference to their sponsors, Repsol, not Orange, and the mysterious Tminus. Well, now it's time to talk about Prince Malik Ado Ibrahim from Nigeria, a Nigerian prince. Now that sounds like a man that I can trust. He supposedly brought $125 million to the financially struggling team, and that's 1999 money, remember. The rear of the arrows was black, and on the side pods there was a daily countdown ticking down to the Thursday before the San Marino Grand Prix. Quite a fun way to attract some interest. But what would happen? Some thought it may have been an announcement of Lamborghini engines, but it was the launch of the Tminus energy drink brand. Energy drink, huh? They'd also sell rebranded products, but whatever the plan was, the brand didn't really exist, and Ibrahim brought absolutely no money to the team. It's uncanny, isn't it? The prince disappeared halfway through the season, and remains a man of mystery to this day. The T- branding was also eventually ditched. Sadly, this was really the nail in the coffin for Arrows, as they truly were in need of those funds, and would ultimately fold just a couple of years later. If you wish to know more about the story, I'll leave a link to the very well written Vice article about the topic. Driver changes. Luca Badoa had recovered from his testing accident and retook his place at Minardi at Sarrazan's expense, and Zonta would miss the next 3 races with his severed tendon. So we need a driver introduction for the second BAR seat. Dear viewers, please meet Mika, jolly important later on in the season, Salo. The Finn had 68 races under his belt and had scored points for lower midfield teams, so a pretty good sub to get in. I think I'd rather Mika Salo over Riccardo Zonta anyway. What about you? Salo or Zonta? Let me know in the comments. Hat-trick of McLaren front row lockouts, but Michael Schumacher had caught right up, less than 2 tenths off. He had been over a second slower in the past 2 races. Irvine joined his teammate on the second row, and Jacques Villeneuve put his BAR 5th on the grid. Absolute standout performance in qualifying. Barrichello 6th, Frentzen 7th. Fairly standard for them, but Benetton would have been really disappointed by their Saturday performance. 16th and 17th. Can McLaren finally have a race where things go smoothly? Let's find out, shall we?
When all 5 go out, there's a programmed pause, and the San Marino Grand Prix is go! Good start by Mika Häkkinen. Frentzen dives out from the pack. Villeneuve has stalled. Jacques Villeneuve has stalled from 5th position on the grid. Mika Häkkinen leads. David Coulthard is in 2nd place. Then the 2 Ferraris. There is a furious Jacques Villeneuve. He's gone down and off. Goes, it looked to me like Olivier Panis. No, it's Trulli. It's Jarno Trulli in the Prost. So his race is over already. And now Schumacher, realising that Mika Häkkinen is pulling away from him, is pushing very hard at David Coulthard.
Although I have it as a running joke about Villeneuve not finishing races in 1999, his situation at the start was far from funny. It was a gear selection issue, and he was very lucky not to be hit from behind. Imola had suffered from such an accident in that awful 1994 race. Still, bad news for him, but good starts for Alesi, Fisichella and Mika Salo. So, with the exception of Villeneuve stalling at the start, the top 6 entered their first lap in the same order in which they started. Häkkinen, Coulthard, Michael Schumacher, Irvine, Barrichello and Frentzen. So, it was a good start for Häkkinen. Very good start, perhaps too good. Almost 2 seconds lead after lap 1, as if his car was much lighter on fuel than everyone else's. Who's to say, am I right? Lap 6. Contacts between Della Rosa and Wirtz at the Tosa hairpin. Cameras managed to miss the point of contact, so it's not entirely clear to see who was at fault, but what is clear, both drivers' races were over. Lap after lap, Häkkinen was setting the fastest laps, easily pulling over a second a lap over Herr Schumacher. Coulthard was also pulling a slight gap over the Ferrari, but Häkkönen's pace was unmatchable. The Finn continued to pull further away. After their shaky start to the season, it looks like McLaren are finally in a position to assert their dominance.
The race leader loses the McLaren.
Slam dunk driving error. McLaren's problems to this point had been issues with the car itself, but it's a team sport at the end of the day. Be it driver or car, if one fails, the result is the same. With Häkkinen out of the race, everyone moved up one position. So now McLaren's hopes laid with the previous year's race winner, Coulthard, who didn't have a too comfortable lead over Schumacher, just over 4 seconds. But of course, they were likely on the same strategy, and passing it at Imola was no easy task. So now we're in a similar situation to the last race in Brazil. 2 equally paced cars, both appearing to be on one-stoppers. The optimum strategy, therefore, would be to go as long as possible, so you can put in your fastest laps while your rival comes into the pits and is on heavy fuel. Lap 29, Michael Schumacher had closed the gap to Coulthard to 2.5 seconds, and his Ferrari teammate Irvine running third made his stop, indicating that the Ferraris hadn't been brimmed with fuel. Speaking of Schumacher, Ralph in the Williams suffered an electrical problem and retired from the race while running fourth. Sure enough, on the next lap, Michael Schumacher made his pit stop. Nice pit stop indeed, but also curious. He's gotten to halfway in the race to make his stop, which would suggest it's a one-stopper, but 7 seconds of fuel isn't nearly enough to see him to the finish. So either the clock didn't start ticking when he was stationary, which isn't unheard of, or Ferrari were doing a clever, which did used to happen, believe it or not. In the immediate laps following his stop, all became clear.
Ahead of Michael Schumacher, who's had his stop, and Michael Schumacher on fresh tyres is flying. He's just made the fastest lap of the race, faster than Mika Häkkinen, 1:28.8, which of course is half a second faster than the fastest lap last year.
Ferrari had indeed short-fielded Schumacher. He was now in clear air and free to smash in those ultra-fast laps. Downside of this, of course, was he was now some 20 seconds behind Coulthard, and both needed to make one stop. End of lap 35 and Coulthard comes into the pits. This is the race now. Schumacher would need to put in a series of qualifying style laps to build a substantial enough lead to switch tyres and refuel once more, and come out still leading. The German was pulling almost a second a lap over the Scot. Coulthard's cause wasn't helped with more time lost while trying to get through the traffic.
David trying very hard, too hard, Tminus goes through again.
Locked up brakes there, just went straight off, and he's not doing quick times either.
Michael Schumacher makes his second stop, and I realise in sport you need a bit of tension and jeopardy, but sorry, none here. The Ferrari came out easily in front of Coulthard. My personal allegiances are with McLaren, but there is no denying the brilliance of Schumacher in what would become a bit of a trademark in his Ferrari days. The ability to set such blistering pace, lap after lap, and pulling off an ambitious strategy. It wasn't all good news for Ferrari, however. The championship leader Eddie Irvine was comfortably running third until he wasn't. On the same lap, Frentzen, who was running fourth and due to inherit third, suffered the same fate as a Northern Irishman. 4 potential points gone for both of them. Suddenly, it was Damon Hill who now found himself in the final podium position. We've barely spoken about that guy so far. In Australia, he was bonked out on lap 1, and Brazil bonked off on lap 11. Damon was on a more traditional 2-stop strategy and made his final stop on lap 49, which dropped him down to 4th, and Barrichello shuffled up to 3rd, and my goodness doesn't he deserve it. Fastest man in Australia when the McLaren's DNF'd, and was on for a solid podium in front of his home fans. In all too familiar fashion, Johnny Herbert's Ford engine did a pop, which saw him drop out of 5th. Fisichella took his place, and Zanardi now found himself in 6th, a points finish which was desperately needed in a very tough comeback.
Yeah, it's Zanardi in the Williams, out of the race.
When Johnny's Ford blew, it dumped a load of fluid onto the Villeneuve chicane. This caught out the legendary Italian, and both drivers were out within moments of each other, just with a few laps remaining. Over to Murray for the finish.
Round turn 16, turn 17, to win the San Marino Grand Prix.
And there we go, Michael Schumacher won his 34th Grand Prix by 4 seconds from David Coulthard. These two were the only drivers to finish on the lead lap, such was their pace in the race. Barrichello scored a very deserved and overdue podium, just the 4th of his career. The other points finishers were Damon Hill, Giancarlo Fisichella and Jean Lacey. Mika Salo gave the BAR team their first classified finish, despite not actually finishing the race. Driver of the day. I really can't look past Michael Schumacher here. Ferrari had a plan which relied on a flawless rapid stint from the German, which he delivered masterly. Because of this strategy play and the drama at the start with Hakkinen, I'd give this race 6 out of 10. Michael Schumacher took the lead of the World Championship, while Irvine and Hakkinen both remained on the same points they started the day, as did Frentzen and Ralf Schumacher, while Coulthard and Barrichello moved up, thanks to their first podiums of the season. 1-2 in the drivers' standings, you shouldn't be too surprised to see Ferrari top of the teams' championship. This is fun. From just the first 3 races, 9 teams had already scored at least 1 point, and bear in mind, you needed to finish in the top 6 to score points. Good old attrition, and that will do it for us. The next race? Crowd splitter, the Monaco Grand Prix. But before you go, this will be the last video I make. For now. I will hopefully be moving into a new home in the coming months, where I shall give myself a proper setup and whatnot, and get something of a regular schedule going, and possibly a Patreon, if anyone would be willing to support the channel. I'm thinking maybe a video every 2 weeks to begin with, because that seems doable right now. Thank you for sticking with this channel, and I'll see you all in 2022. Right, I'm off now. Bye.